Hey Sarah, so we're going to go through that breathing screen that we talked about before. So today what I'm going to ask you to do is in a few moments to lie down and just take some time to relax, let your body relax on the table, and then we'll go from there and have more of a look at your breathing. Okay, are you ready? Alright, so while Sarah is getting onto the table, I'm looking at how she's moving, I'm looking at how she holds herself, her movement patterns, are they smooth, how she carries her chest as well. And while she's on the table here, I am actually going to be observing her breathing. What I want to do though is make sure that she is not changing that breathing pattern because I'm assessing. So I always ask people to find their own space on the table and then start asking questions or really closely observing their breathing. I tend to stand in line with someone's knee and at about a 30-degree angle from their body, so that they've got a comfortable line of sight when they're looking up at me. Now, if you have a table like this, great. If not, a yoga mat or folded blanket on the floor will also work just as well. Okay, so while I'll never stand in this position to do a breathing screening, what I wanted to show you was some of the mechanics of breathing in a little bit more close-up detail. So as the person starts that breath in, what we're looking for is a little rise here at the bottom of the sternum as that diaphragm starts to move. If the person has good intra-abdominal pressure and core stability, what you'll see is a rise throughout the abdomen that comes right down here into the lower pelvis. The second movement that will happen is the upper chest will rise towards the chin as the lungs start to fill with air and expand the rib cage. The third movement that you'll see is the lower ribs will start to extend outwards as the diaphragm gets towards its full extension and it needs to create that extra space. On the exhalation, the opposite happens. The ribs will move inwards, the chest will move downwards, and that wave will come back up towards the ribs and just relax the abdomen. Now, that's in ideal breathing patterns when we're at rest. If we're seeing things like holding breath here and only getting belly movement, if we're seeing extra tension in the neck, if we're seeing a little flutter that happens when we're holding our breath at the top before we exhale, they're all things that we want to be working on and noticing in that breathing screening. The same with whether the nose is starting to flare, whether the pupils in the eyes are quite large, and generally just how people are comfortable within that breathing rhythm. Okay, so after taking all of those observations myself, I'm going to ask Sarah, what are you noticing? And the idea of asking that quite open question is I don't know how much body awareness she has. I don't know at this stage how much interoception she has of her breathing system, and I don't want to make her feel uncomfortable by specifically asking her to identify a pattern or a sequence. So by asking that quite open question, you can also gauge the level of body awareness that someone does have. So Sarah, when you're ready, I'm going to get you to sit up on the side of the table and we'll check out the next part of the screening. Always check in with the person that you're working with to make sure they're not lightheaded at this point. If they are, just a simple hand on the shoulder or asking them to brace their hands against the edge of the table, offering a glass of water, all of those things can help to raise the blood pressure again. Alright, so with Sarah sitting here on the side of the table, what I'm going to ask her to do is take a big deep breath in and then let it go. What I'm asking her to do is going to let me see the compensation patterns that she has, the volume of air that she's capable of taking in, without going down sort of the spirometry measurements. Again, our whole observation here is clinical observations. And I'm again looking at her posture and how she's moving and carrying herself. And again, repeating that question at the end of what did you notice? So when you're ready, Sarah, take a nice deep breath in and then letting it go. Fantastic. And at this point, I will give some of my early observations to the person that I'm working with and see if that helps them to feel a little bit connected with their body, providing some of those external cues for body referencing, for identifying those patterns, because for a lot of people, and certainly the people that I work with, their ability to judge what's going on in their body is very, very difficult for them. So that's the breathing screening.